Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Hello guys, welcome along to this week's Doctor Who Review, where today we're going to be looking back at quite an episode featuring that speech from Peter Capaldi. It's the Zygon Inversion. So, well, this is the second part of the Zygon two-parter written by Peter Harness. We come off the back of the first part, the Zygon Invasion. Gotta watch those two different letters. Yeah, two different letters that clearly make the world of difference. Where we finished with Bonnie, aka Clara, Zygon Clara, that's it, that's the word I was looking for. Zygon Clara, about to... Kate Stewart's supposedly dead, Clara's not dead but she's supposedly dead, and the Doctor and Osgood are about to be blown up in a big plane. So what seems the logical outcome? What seems the logical way of starting the next episode? Let's go inside Clara's mind! Yeah, because that makes so much logical sense. Well, of course it obviously does in the context of the episode, and this is something which I think I've mentioned before, where in this series, none of the cliffhangers actually continue on from the cliffhanger in the second episode. Every single one in this series always starts somewhere else, so it's a very different way of doing a two-part story to any of Classic Who, and most of New Who up to this point, which generally follow on straight away, just resolve the cliffhanger, but in these episodes you just sort of don't. It doesn't work like that. They always have a little detour. Usually it's just the first few minutes, other than Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. Although that's... oh, whatever. But yeah, that's a nice, different way of doing things, changing it up a bit, as I've mentioned this series did quite a bit of. Changing things up a bit. And well, it was quite an interesting sort of opening sequence where we are inside Clara's mind, effectively, but she's trapped inside her house, sort of, in this weird place with walls instead of doors, or walls behind windows and doors. And please tell me someone else has noticed this, that with the reference to the 1980s film, I think it is, They Live, where the reference where it says "this is toothpaste" written on the bottle of toothpaste, which is a reference to that film. It's this sort of media-y film where this guy has these special glasses which allow him to see these aliens which are disguised as humans who are trying to sort of take over the whole world, and like you can only see that they're aliens with these glasses and stuff. And it's got lots of sort of hidden political messages that you only see when you wear the glasses, like sort of various sort of newspapers and magazines and stuff. When you wear the glasses, just say propaganda and this kind of stuff. And then they reference it here with "this is toothpaste." So I quite like that. I haven't seen the film. It's always nice to get a reference to something that you haven't seen before, that you've seen. And so I'll probably stick a picture up, so you can have some idea of how this film looks. It's quite a good film actually. It's worth a watch if that kind of thing interests you. But yeah, so that was just sort of to starts the episode off, and then well, we get good old Clara trapped in trying to figure things out, trying to stop Bonnie from firing, because she's still got a little bit of control over Bonnie because they're linked, aren't they? So, but she doesn't do a very good job of it. And then well, the plane gets blown up. Cut to titles. Now, obviously, as I mentioned last week, I've been spoiled of how the Doctor and Osgood were going to escape the plane from filming pictures, but frankly, they didn't make a big thing out of the exploding plane. It was kind of just, oh, they had a parachute, fairly simple, although they sort of made it into a big cliffhanger. The resolution really wasn't anything at all. It was kind of just carrying the story on, if you like. It would have been nice to see a proper James Bond moment with the Doctor in, like, dropping out of the sky in the parachute, rather than just have him lying on the beach unstrapping himself from the parachute. I think that would have been nicer to stick with this sort of slightly James Bondy vibe for the two-parter. And well, it was around the time Spectre came out, didn't it? It was like that week or something. The week, it might even be like the day before it came out, or was that Invasion? I can't remember. But it was around then when Spectre came out. And so it would have been nice if they just sort of spent a little bit more on money and actually had the Doctor parachuting down out of the sky with that lovely Union Jack parachute. You could have easily got a helicopter shot of the Union Jack, just another nod to James Bond. That would have been nice. But there you go, they didn't do it. It wasn't crucial. And well, the Doctor and Osgood are left lying on a beach, and the Doctor believes that Osgood is dead. That must be pretty painful. Actually, one other thing I just forgot, which I should mention on the opening sequence, is it's a nice sort of, it's very much a horror style opening sequence, I thought. Straight out of a horror movie kind of thing. The music used that as well. They really made that sort of horror element of it, I think, and that was sort of a nice change up from sort of the first episode, which was very different to that. It was sort of action adventure, the first part, and then we suddenly cut to this little horror moment. I think it doesn't really last the whole episode, but it's a nice way to get the episode started. Slightly different change of pace. And so we, as I mentioned, we're on the beach with the Doctor and Osgood. Osgood, as I watched the Doctor Who extras and stuff, they reminded us that Osgood is effectively the companion of this episode. She kind of just sort of fills in for Clara in this episode as the companion, which is okay. Happy she's not a permanent companion because I'm not too fussed about a character, as I mentioned last week. So it's good that she kind of doesn't stay in the end. Well, I'll come to that later. But for this part of the episode she is, and we see the Doctor's more pain at the potential loss of Clara, of course setting up later in the series yet again. But we see sort of after having seen in the girl who died, having to considering Clara's demise and thinking how that would affect him, which is familiar, feeling Clara's pain, the pain of Clara's death even. And then we see it again in this episode, how much pain he feels for even having some idea that Clara might be dead, and even when he gets some hope that Clara is still not dead, it's still really pain. And so it's sort of, we see yet again setting up for the raginess of the Doctor in the finale and how he couldn't cope. It shows it doesn't make it out of character for the Doctor to go mental in Heaven Sent and Hell Bent and break all the rules and this kind of stuff, because we've seen through the series how much he can't cope with it, and so it's just sort of completing it when his fears actually become a full-on reality, which we see at the end of the series, at least for 2 episodes. Yay, my farts! And so yeah, it's a very good sort of building up for the character development, as I mentioned before, and building up to that finale with sort of showing you how the Doctor's like when he fears Clara's dead, just setting it all up nicely. So that's a really sort of good way of progressing the series, I think. And well, after Clara did next to nothing in the previous episode other than 2 minutes at the beginning, she actually does something. Yes, she's not physically there, but she does actually do quite a lot in this episode. I mean, from within her mind, if you like. She shows to be sort of very ingenious and very strong with doing the texting, because she's worked out that she still has some power, and if she focuses, she can type a text with her hand through Bonnie, if you like. And well, I'd like to give it a try. See if you can close your eyes and type a text message. See if you could even holding your phone. Could you type a message with your eyes closed? Good luck with that. There you go, that's my challenge for the week. Get your phone and try and type out a message with your eyes closed, and then put it down and see if you can type it then. Although you won't be able to tell if you can, so it doesn't really work. But anyway, it showed that Clara was very strong, didn't it? And that she was working things out and was able to break through the sort of stranglehold, if you like, that Bonnie had from trapping her in this magical pod that we see there. And so she's sort of she is really well written and strong in this episode, and then we see that later on with the sort of Bonnie versus Clara inside her mind, where she's kind of a bit overconfident until she realises that Bonnie can feel her pulse. Although I'm not convinced the science is that realistic. Is it really that easy to tell from taking someone's pulse that it will automatically speed up when they're lying? I'm fairly sure your pulse can just randomly speed up and down a little bit, just generally. It's not just going to permanently, it's not going to be just purely dictated by you lying or not. So I'm not convinced that that was the perfect science, but maybe it was, and maybe it'll make sense. But we suspend our disbelief. You have to do that in Doctor Who. And it created a great scene where Clara had to be very careful in what she said. And well, she said all the right things, and she kind of led Bonnie in there. She wanted Bonnie to go to the Black Archive, quite frankly, as did the Doctor. The Doctor wanted her to be there, so that he could stop her and sort of end the war. And well, I'll come to all that later. But it's sort of, yeah, Clara was seriously sort of challenged, if you like, and she kind of overcame that challenge and really confronted Bonnie there, and was able to stay strong and give the right answers, which would help the Doctor later on. And of course the winking bit as well, when they were on the FaceTime, effectively, the video call. Although they seem to have some very strange operating system on Osgood's phone. I'm not sure, was it Osgood's phone? I think it was Osgood's phone. I'm not quite sure what that was, because it was very weird graphics and stuff, so who knows. But that's that. yeah, Clara was again showing that she could break through and having the right ideas with the winking, and Bonnie doesn't even realise that she's winking, even though she's winking, and well, the Doctor makes a nice joke out of it. Well, and it just sort of really, although she doesn't do much in the real world, if you like, in this episode, Clara, she still shows herself to be very strong and progresses nicely through the episodes. That's good to see. Just a few sort of small little sort of tidbits, references and stuff that I picked up on the episode that I quite liked. Of course, there's the Hartnell picture on the sort of back of the door where Bonnie opens to find the laptop, I think it is. Yeah, that was a nice sort of classic promotional shot of William Hartnell, which I think they sort of reused for the 50th anniversary stuff. Kind of sort of, that was the main picture they used, I think, around the time for any sort of promotional stuff related to the First Doctor. So it was nice to bring him back, give him another nod, because he started it all off, of course. So that was nice to see. And another little thing that we got supposedly for the first time, the Doctor's smiling, his very disturbing smiling that the Doctor kind of did, which I think I might put up the close-up sort of unnerving picture of the Doctor smiling, which looks slightly disturbing when you look at it up close, that sort of very weird smile that he has. But it's a nice funny moment with the Doctor and Osgood where they're just having a little bit of banter, if you like, because, well, they're kind of Doctor Companion now for this episode, so they can have that Doctor Companion banter, if you like. And, well, Osgood always wants to kind of be the companion until the end of the episode, but she suddenly doesn't. But she kind of does, so she just sort of fills in the role straight away, and so that's another nice little moment through the episode. Well, I should just talk about Bonnie, or Zygella, as the Doctor decided to call her. Not quite sure why. Clearly it's a reference to Nigella, but I'm not sure what the reference is. Is it because they look similar or something? I can't remember. Maybe it's something like that. But whatever. Zygella's a nice name, but I'll stick with Bonnie because Bonnie is easier. Barney is an easier name to say, as the Doctor loves to say in an American accent as well, of course. But yeah, she's sort of... she gets slightly ragey, which is quite funny. But she's a very sort of a nice villain, and Jenna Coleman plays her brilliantly as a villain and plays her very differently to Clara. She did a great job of sort of making the two characters so very different. So although they're played by the same actress and they look fairly, well, they don't look the same. That's a great sort of, I mentioned it last week as well, in the sort of makeup and costume, even just a slightly different hairstyle, she still looks so different to Clara, which is pretty impressive, and she plays it really different as well. She plays a very good villain, it has to be said, I think, Jenna Coleman. I wouldn't mind seeing her in a villainous role somewhere in the future, but clearly that's not going to happen at the moment because she's doing Victoria, which she's probably finished filming it by now. Don't know when that's actually coming out. It's in a sneak peek. I'll watch that because it's got Jenna Coleman in. Don't know how interesting it'll actually be, but it's got Jenna Coleman in, so might as well give it a try. And, well, yeah, so Bonnie was a very sort of a good villain, but she kind of gets stuffed at the end, if you like. She realises her mistakes and turns around. But before that, she has to go all ragey, smashing up the laptop, throwing the phone across the room when she finds out there's 2 Osgood boxes. And there's even more buttons in the Osgood boxes. Doctor just trolling Bonnie there, really, with the... well, look, there's only 1 Osgood box. Oh yeah, open the box, you press the button and everything will blow up. Actually, no, there's 2 buttons and there's 2 boxes. La la la, you need me over there, didn't you? So that was quite a funny moment, sort of. Yeah, well, Bonnie gets pretty ragey and angry, although her logic generally is pretty flawed in the, I just want a war because we'll win the war and then there'll be more wars, but then there'll be no need for war and then there'll be war. It's all about war with Bonnie, really, isn't it? And so yeah, well, I won't spend too much on the speech as of yet because I've got to come to that later on because it's such a spectacular speech by Peter Capaldi that we need to mention. So I'll leave it at that for now and we'll come on to a bit more of that later. Now, one of the other major things which I mentioned briefly last week was the political themes of this episode, and this second part is where they're really sort of explored and really looked into it a lot more clearly with this sort of radicalisation, there you go, idea, because you get that guy, that sort of greasy, old-ish, fat guy who's actually a Zygon, who's being chased down by Bonnie because she wants to convert him and unmask him and sort of break the connection, the thingy that keeps them as human when they want to be. And that is very much sort of politicised, if that's the right word for this, and is an allegory of most of the people in countries like Syria who are just want to live there. They don't have any problem with maybe not being treated as the supreme beings, but they just want to live how they are. They're happy. This guy's just happy how he is. He's happy to live as a human. He's happy. He's fine. He doesn't need them. He's not worried about sort of having to stay as a human. He's fine with that. He's got no problem with it, and that's very much a political message sort of in the world today, where you've got the likes of ISIS and most of the people living around in those areas. They're happy. They're fine. Even the people, I don't even know what the religion is, but like other sort of people within their religion are fine with the way things are. They're not worried. It's just these few people that want to cause war. Really, they just want a war. They just sort of want to destroy everything. Then they won't accept that they have to be the way they are, even if 95% of everyone else is happy with the way it is. With those 5%, they can cause mass chaos. And so it's really nice, given those sort of parallels to the world today within the episodes, which is good to see with Doctor Who, as I mentioned last week. It's nice to see them bucking up and giving us some relevant political themes for the episode. So that's good. And well, one of the other major characters to mention, of course, is Kate Stewart, who's magically survived. She was actually good. She was actually clever and smart in this episode for once. She wasn't just the useless unit head who doesn't really know what she's doing and can get told exactly what to do by Clara. She actually thinks on her feet, just blast the Zygons dead, because you can do that with one of the very few alien races that you can actually kill with bullets. And clearly Kate knows that. And she uses her initiative. As soon as she sees that Zygon, bam, 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 bam. You get the 5 rounds rapid, of course, the reference to the Daemons, and that majestic line from the Brigadier. Chat with the wings, 5 rounds rapid. Such a great line. Really is a classic line from the series. And it's nice to see that. The way it's said kind of made it a slightly sort of bold. I don't think it worked fantastically. Her delivery of the line just didn't quite work for me. It wasn't quite the way I was hoping. But it was a nice reference, but I don't think it was done quite as well as it could have been done. I think it could have been a little bit more subtle than that. It just kind of sounded like she was just saying 5 rounds. You wouldn't normally say 5 rounds rapid in that context. I don't think you'd say, oh, I just shot the Zygon dead. You wouldn't say, oh, 5 rounds rapid. I don't think so. It was kind of a slightly stretching it and sort of felt out of place reference, if you like. And I know that sort of line is difficult to get into, and I feel like they shouldn't have been forced to get it in. So although it's a nice nod, it just sort of feels a bit shoved in there, just because, oh, we got to reference something else, let's throw in another reference because we can. It was just, yeah, it didn't quite work. So although it's nice, it's a little bit disappointing the way they actually sort of carried it out. But overall, Kate is a much better character in this episode. She of course kills 2 more Zygons when the Zygons are tricked into thinking that Kate's a Zygon, and then she just blasts them away as well. So she's wiped out 3 Zygons. Pretty nice for her for once, actually doing something and killing some people, or Zygons even. And then of course she gets to the Black Archive and the War Room and the War Speech to come. Well, there's no point in really putting it off anymore. We might as well come to that speech from Peter Capaldi, which, although Heaven Sent is the most incredible episode ever, and is the best episode ever as far as I'm concerned, this speech and that sort of 10 minutes is still, I'd say, the defining moment of Capaldi's Doctor. More because Heaven Sent's just a brilliant episode throughout, but you've just got this one moment, this speech. Obviously, the sort of montage sequence in Heaven Sent is also a very remarkable scene and is very much sort of tied with Peter. But I think that this sort of speech really is his defining moment. And we see once again, despite everything that's happened with saving Gallifrey, it's trapped in a parallel pocket universe and all this kind of stuff, he still feels the pain of it. He's still not over. Although they're not all dead, he hasn't actually killed them. Sort of, not really. He hasn't really killed them in actual fact. He still feels that pain of knowing that he made that choice, and at that time he did kill all those people on Gallifrey, and you can see that it still pains him so much. Even if he's turned it back, he still knows that deep down he sort of wasn't a good man at that point, linking back to the Series 8 arc, in that he chose to kill all those people. Clearly it was a decision he had to make, and although it's reversed, it's sort of, despite everything we've come through, he's still aware of what he did, and he's not happy about it. He has that pain which he has to hold it tight, as he talks about, and so that's really nice to see, sort of the pain that the Doctor feels really being let out for the first time in relation to that since the day of the Doctor, we really haven't had any sort of of course we've had the Doctor being ragey in Death and Heaven about not being able to find Gallifrey, but we've never really had anything else about the fact that he killed his own people with Capaldi's Doctor as of yet. So it was really nice to get that out there, that even though it's changed back, that he still feels it. So that's only just one part of the speech, but it's such a great part of it. And it's sort of, this speech as a whole is kind of classic Doctor style, if you like, trying to stop a war without violence, just keeping peace with peace. He doesn't want to go out there and go and blow them all up. And well, we see that in the first part as well, when Unit want to go and blow up that Turkmenistan, not Turkmenistan is the actual place, Turkmenistan, when that like Zygon training camp, and the Doctor's just like, no, don't do it, you can't do this, you can't blow up the whole place, it's just stupid, because he's against violence in general, really, although on occasions it's necessary, and well, he killed his own people, so it was necessary there, on occasion he will grab a gun. And well, that moment in Hellbent is something that I'll come on to when we get to there, of course, because he does take a gun and effectively kill someone. So, but there's a lot of reasons why that happened, which I'll explain then. But in this episode, it's sort of almost talking back to something like Doctor Who and the Silurians, or the Sea Devils from the 70s, where he'd try and negotiate with these aliens, the alien races, talk to them and just get them to stop this war, stop this fighting, because it's not necessary. You can both live in peace. It's very much the Silurian situation again, of your races can live alongside each other together in peace, and the Sea Devils as well, and the New Who's Silurian two-parter. And in this episode, it's all the same idea of, we've got humans and we've got aliens on the same planet, but you can live together. It's possible to make that work in this situation. And well, with the Zygons, of course, 95% of the people of the Zygons are happy with the way they are. There's no problems there. And it is not necessary to start a whole war, bloodshed, loads of people killed, just to sort of appease the 5% of Zygons who aren't very happy about it. And that really sort of gives a message to today, where we don't need to start a war because 2% of people aren't very happy with the way they're living. It doesn't mean you need to start a war on the world. It's this kind of thing that just sort of the Doctor tries to sort of drum home to us, and about the ideas of war, and sort of how war isn't glamorous and this kind of thing. And it's a really good message to give to kids and this kind of thing, that war isn't this great, the war isn't a good thing, it isn't exciting, it's not heroic, and this kind of thing. And that's a really good sort of something to give to the kids when they're watching it, so that they don't sort of get this idea that, oh, war's exciting, oh, great guns, shooting people, yeah, this looks so much fun. It's great to see that they're sort of making it clear that it's not a good thing, and we don't want that, and it'll only cause bad things to happen, if you like. And well, Peter pulls this off absolutely brilliantly in this sort of speech, where you've got all the main characters stood around there. You've got Osgood and Clara doing nothing in the background, basically, and you've got Kate and Bonnie on the two boxes, both getting ready to press those buttons. Of course the boxes were empty because, well, they had to be. The Doctor would never take those sort of risks. And well, he plays a game with them with his wacky American game show accent. This is a nice sort of funny moment within such a serious speech. To have that funny moment is really so nice. It just works so well, and you've got to give it to Stephen Moffat as well, because although it says written by Peter Harness and Stephen Moffat, it's very obvious that Stephen wrote this. Even if, I'm fairly sure we've had it confirmed, but even if it wasn't confirmed, we know that Stephen wrote this bit. And this is where his, in my opinion, is, I think, and my friend said that as well, is Stephen's greatest strength is his ability to write dialogue for the Doctor. And we see that in this, of course we see it in the whole of Heaven Sent, which is what makes it so amazing. But in this speech as well, that he understands the Doctor, so I don't think there's really been any other writer who has understood the Doctor and his psyche quite as well as Stephen does. And so he's able to, maybe where other things, he is flawed in other things, ways he writes stuff, and some of the actual plots, and just some of the general ideas, maybe writing women and this kind of thing, but I won't go into that today because that's a whole different can of worms. But purely in terms of his writing of the Doctor as character, I think he's unrivaled, and he just understands the character so well and can really sort of develop it. And through this speech we see that with the way that he tries to stop this war, and the way he sort of talks Bonnie out of it without using any violence, it gets a little bit shouty, but that's necessary, and that's Peter's Doctor. Peter's Doctor is a bit shouty at times. That's just how it is. Maybe David or Matt wouldn't have got so shouty in that, but I don't think personally that David or Matt could quite pull off that sort of a speech with those basically 10 minutes of just Peter talking and nothing, and not much else going on. The odd line from Bonnie, but it's just about only Peter saying anything really. And yeah, I just, as much as I think that 10 and 11 are great with David and Matt, I don't think they'd quite be able to pull that off. Certainly not in the same way, and I just don't think they'd quite be able to do it. So that sort of shows how great Peter is as an actor, and how he can pull off the Doctor as well. And of course, through this speech, we kind of he talks to Bonnie about sort of what's going to be left once you've won the war, you've taken over, everything's perfect. What do you do with you? What's the point of Bonnie at that point? And then she makes it clear, we just want war. That's all they want. Bonnie is just there, a warmonger, if you like. She just wants war, and that's it. That's how she is. as the Doctor sort of gets down to that and digs deep and really just finds out the exact motive that she has. Of course, he probably knows that already, that her motive's just war, 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 because that's how it is with a lot of sort of aliens and almost sort of, well, as the Doctor calls them, tantruming children, of course, that they don't believe they'll ever be forgiven. And the Doctor is one of those people that will forgive them, that will give them a second chance, and will let them go free if they just rethink their actions and change their ways and stop being this unnecessary hunger for war, if you like, that's just not needed and is not going to be beneficial to anyone. And of course, Kate's over there on the other side as well, going into that room. She's kind of like, well, the piece is broken down, that's it, we've got to just start a war, we've got to finish this thing off. And yet she's completely turned around by the end of it. You can sort of see that she knows she's made a complete mistake in all of this, and that she's sort of, yeah, she apologises to the Doctor at the end, of course, because she just realises that she's made such a big misjudgment, if you like, and it's taken the Doctor this much to sort of really get his point across and stop that war that had the potential for happening. Although, of course, he's always got the foolproof plan of the forgetting thing, which I love that moment where you've said that the last 15 times, and then it's just, yeah, you'll wipe the memory. But you just imagine what that must have been like for the Doctor if he had to go through that 15 times or 16 times with that last one. He would have had to go through that whole speech and the pain, and because he didn't get the right result at the end, he had to keep on resetting it and trying all over again, resetting everyone, sort of making them all forget. But he wouldn't forget, and he'd have to do it all over again, and you can just imagine how draining that would be for him, doing this whole sort of speech and then going through reminding himself of that pain of killing all the Time Lords and the Daleks and everyone, blowing up Gallifrey, and how much pain he feels from that. And he still keeps it so real, even the 16th time round, it still looks so real emotion that he has from it. So it's amazing that the Doctor's able to pull that off again and again and again. And so it's a really nice sort of moment at the end there where we find out that they've been trying over and over again to get Bonnie to say the right thing at the end of it. I guess, well, that's one way of making someone change their mind, make them forget every time they say the wrong thing, and then let's start again, let's try again to make it a peaceful solution. So yeah, that speech overall is just, it's wonderful, and it's so relevant as well. And it was doing the rounds when the Paris attacks happened, because this was around that time, and maybe a couple of weeks. Paris attacks was probably a couple of weeks after this episode. I think I mentioned about this last week. And that speech sort of on Twitter was just doing the rounds. It was getting thousands of retweets and video clips of it and stuff well being shared around that night. Sort of just talking about how there's no need for war. You can sort things out without resorting to violence and war. There's no positives to this sort of war, and it's just not necessary. So it was really well shared. It was just such a brilliant speech. I mean, I can't really applaud it enough, if you like. I think you just have to watch it and admire it, really. There's not that much more to say about it. So, I think I said this in the Series 9 review, that it really makes this episode and brings it up, because without this, it'd be just your bog standard episode, really. But that sort of ending really lifts it up into one of the very great episodes because of that. Those last 10 to 15 minutes with the speech and the ending, it's all just, it just makes it so great, doesn't it? I think, at least. And so, well, what more is there to say on the speech, really? I'm sure we could find more if I had a transcript, and I could just going more, but I haven't got a transcript. I'm just doing this from memory, so there you go. What a great speech. And well, to finish off, we've got this last few minutes where we have Osgood standing outside the TARDIS, ready to go with the Doctor, but actually no, she's not going to go with the Doctor because she's got to stay home, stay on Earth, and keep the peace, even though it's basically fixed and fairly fixed now and safe, but whatever. And then of course we get Bonnie becoming the other Osgood, because why not? Bonnie's been changed, she's good now. And so there's a vacancy in the other Osgood, so yeah, Bonnie can just become the second Osgood. It's not too, I'm not too bothered about that. But, and we still don't get an explanation, of course, to why, to whether the left-hand side Osgood, the one with the question mark thingy on, whether she's actually human or a Zygon or not. And well, she gives of course the Moffat tease, as I like to call it, of, well, you might find out one day. Yeah, we might tell you that one day. You never know, we might. And it's just Moffat saying, yeah, we'll tell you eventually, but you've got to keep watching and wait 15 years to actually find out, because that's the way I roll as a showrunner. But we might find the next series, to be honest, if she comes back. Because I don't see her coming back once Moffat's gone, because she's a Moffat character, pretty much. And so, I think I mentioned this last week as well, actually, but that she's sort of, yeah, she'll probably appear in Series 10, I think, at least. Just although the problem is that you kind of got to bring back the Zygons now. I guess you don't have to, because they didn't in Death in Heaven, but because she's so, because we hadn't seen all that stuff about it in Death in Heaven, we didn't really know the specifics of the old Osgood Zygon situation. But now that we do, it does kind of feel like you've got to sort of, you can't really have Osgood without the Zygons anymore. They kind of intertwined. You've got to bring them both back, and I don't think they'd want to have a proper Zygon story again. You'll just probably end up with another silly cameo or another Madame Vastra or something, or Strax. Another one of those sort of characters is possible, I think. Which would be a little bit disappointing if they go that way, because you want proper alien invasions and races, and we need a proper Sontaran story again as well. We haven't had one of those since, well, there's only been one in New Who, and that wasn't very good. So it'd be nice to have a proper Sontaran story again, because, well, we've had a proper Zygon story now. We've had a proper Zygon invasion story, because it's called the Zygon Invasion, so why can't we have a proper Sontaran invasion story? Because they're a decent race, clone race, yes, they're a nice war-hungry race as well. And they could create a good story, but you just got Comedy Strax, who's not really a proper Sontaran anymore, so that's a bit disappointing. It's not really relevant to this episode, of course, but it's just one of my general thoughts of Doctor Who. It would be nice to have that sort of thing coming back. But that's pretty much it for this episode. You get the last sort of the moment with the Doctor and Clara in the TARDIS, where, well, you can see Clara says, "You must have thought I was dead," and the Doctor says, "Yeah, that was seriously painful." But it was only 5 minutes. It was a month, or was it 5 minutes? That was a slightly cryptic line, I felt, and could have been expanded on much better in a different way, because of course the Doctor says that was a long month, and she said it can't be more than 5 minutes. It's where you could have slotted a nice reference to sort of, I don't know, Clara had already been died or something like this. I don't know, but whatever. It just sort of shows this sort of yet more foreshadowing to Clara's death. Of course, it's all kind of a little bit clunky, sort of shoved in foreshadowing that doesn't work perfectly. It's fairly good in most parts. A lot of it's quite good, but there are just moments where it feels like you just unnecessarily shoved in a line or a moment to yet again foreshadow the death of Clara, which is obviously coming. And maybe they just did that on purpose to make it so clear that Clara was going to die, and then she doesn't, but she does, but she doesn't, but she does, but she doesn't. Well, that's coming soon to EMS Reviews. Clara dies, but she doesn't, but she does, but she doesn't, but she does. Sorry, let's move on. That's the end of the episode. And what's coming next? We all know what's coming next. I'm going to need some help through that one next week, guys. It's the review of Sleep No More. I'm not sure quite how I'm going to manage to talk about that for half an hour. I think we'll be lucky if we get that to 15 minutes, because, well, I hope that you don't like Sleep No More, because I'm not going to be saying nice things about it next week. I'm going to rewatch it tonight, and I'll try and be positive about it, but not going to happen. So, yeah, it's going to be a difficult experience even watching it again, because it's so bad, and the review is just going to be horrible. So hopefully I can make a decent video for you next time, but who knows really, because I have to review Sleep No More. Not been looking forward to it. It's like reviewing Love and Monsters or Fear Her. It's just these terrible episodes are just so bad. All you can do is say they're terrible, and that's about it, really. So, yeah, that's coming for next week, and well, that's pretty much all there is to say about the Zygon Inversion. A very good story, of course, made by the last 10 minutes. But I gave it a sort of an 8.3, I think, out of 10, 8.2, 8.3, something around there, because it is a very top story. And as a two-parter, it is a very good story. It's not a class. I don't think it's an absolute classic. It's a very good two-parter, but it's not the most amazing episode I've ever seen. It's definitely not as good as the Dalek, Manchester Apprentice, which are familiar, the Dalek two-parter, or Danfrost two-parter, let's call it, at the start of the series. And it's sort of on a par with the underwater-based two-parter. It's maybe the sort of better bits and worse bits, so they're probably overall about on a par with each other. And Gody Died, Woman Who Lived, they're kind of a little bit below this as well. And it's just Sleep No More to come, of course. So it's a solid story with a great ending. I think that's the best way of summing it up. And well, that's pretty much all there is from this video. I've been Elliot. I'm EMS Productions. Remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new here, comment on what you thought about this episode and this video, whether you agree with me or not, whatever you like to comment about, how amazing Peter Capaldi is in this episode with the speech, or just whatever you like, really. And well, I'll see you next time for the dreaded review of Sleep No More. Goodbye.